Hey folks, this is Matt once again, and welcome back to another review, and this is of the sequel FX2, which came out 5 years later after the first one. And I figure, you know what, I reviewed the first one, I got the first one as a gift, very nice gift from DMC. I figured I should just order the second one so I'd have both of these films on Blu-ray. And one thing I didn't mention in my review of the first film are the Blu-rays of these, they look great. The films look great. Best that I've seen these films look. Definitely much better than the DVD versions of these, where it's just like a flipper disc and they scratch easily, and definitely better picture quality. Unfortunately, neither of these have Bryan Brown or Bryan Dennehy interviewed, which is sad. I don't know why. But this does have a making of from back in the day, and trailers for the first one and this one. It's directed by Richard Franklin, who did Road Games with Stacy Keach, Jamie Lee Curtis, great movie. Psycho 2, my favorite Psycho film. I actually reviewed all the Psycho films on my channel. Link, which I like. And definitely on my list of most underrated directors, Richard Franklin, along with Peter Hyams and some others I would put on that list. And I don't really get the hate for this film. In fact, I would say I really enjoy the first effects, but if I had to pick, I would probably choose over this one. Because I thought it took the first film and improved on things. For example, one thing I said with effects is like the fight scene that Bryan Brown has with a guy, it's really not much to it. Here there's a fight scene that Bryan Brown has, and it's much more improved. There's much more to it. He has this toy clown thing that goes with his movements, and just a much more creative, exciting fight. Also, one of the things I said about the first effects is Bryan Dennehy didn't seem like he got to be much part of the story, kind of just like a side story. Here, Bryan Dennehy is much more part of the story. He has more scenes with Bryan Brown. He's much more a part of the story that's going on with Bryan Brown, especially by the end of the film. I mean, he's actually part of the finale. He's not just outside on the gate with the cops. Okay, let's go in. And I liked that. I thought it moved at a good pace. I would say with both openings of the film, the opening to the first film was interesting. This was, I think, a lot more fun and cooler. Again, I really enjoyed the first effects. I really enjoyed that film. But again, I would say this improved on it. So again, I don't understand why this film gets so much of a bad rap. I mean, yeah, 5 years after the first one seems like an awfully long time to do a sequel to this. Maybe like a year or two. But still, the opening where you have a bum washing a car that's crashed. Wash your window, lady. And the girl comes out, and then you hear this voice, I don't do windows, in sort of an Arnold type of accent, and you realize the girl's a guy and throws the bum through a window, and cops show up and shoot, and you realize it's a cyborg, and blue blood is coming down, and parts getting blown off, and then even the arm gets blown off, and then this thing comes out, and it's a rocket, and it shoots, and then a director goes, cut, cut, so you realize, of course, it's part of a film, and yeah, that car didn't go off when it was supposed to. And I'm like, this sideboard under it looks pretty cool. And it's a practical effect. This thing comes out and a rocket shoots. Fuck, it's better than anything I saw in Terminator Sage of Genesis. And this is a much lower budget film. And Bryan Brown is there with this kid. And he brought him to this set. He's not working on it, but he still knows people in the movie business wanted to show this kid because this kid likes effects. And now he's with Rachel Ticotin, which I thought that was another thing improved on. Like the girl in the first one, the girlfriend was fine, but Rachel Ticotin I think is a better actress. She was good at Total Recall. She was good in Con Air. I think she's good in this movie, and I thought this had some more cool gadgets and effects. For example, Bryan Brown shows Rachel Ticotin this new toy, because that's what Bryan Brown does now. He makes toys. He's not in the effects business anymore. He makes toys. And this new toy is this suit that you put on, and when you move, this clown toy moves along with it. I thought that's really cool. That's kind of what they do nowadays. When they put on a suit, and, well, now it's green screen, so if they do this, oh, match the movements. But I've seen stuff where people put on this gadget and they move, and then this thing moves with it. I thought that was a really cool gadget. And he's pretty much Rachel Ticotin had a husband, and that's where the kid comes from, this ex-husband who's a cop. And that's, hey, I know you were into effects, I really need your help on a case. I need you to help make me look like this, and this woman's in trouble. And so he decides to, because he's with Rachel Ticotin, who has a kid, and it's the kid's actual father. The ex-cop needs some help. He's like, okay, I'll help this guy. And he makes this screen of this woman showering so that he can put it there. So a peeper who's looking thinks the woman's in the shower, but it's actually just a projection. And the cop who's undercover, he actually, Raleigh, Bryan Brown's character, made some fake tits and stuff and helps him out. And actually put in some little mini cameras, which is very typical nowadays, these little mini cameras. Almost as if like this webcam, if I put this webcam there. So, again, I think this film is not that dated. It's actually pretty cool seeing these effects. And you see like cool stuff around it, like when he's lighting his girlfriend her cake, he has like a finger on fire to light the cake, and just a lot of cool little stuff there. But pretty much what happens is the peeper comes in, and then the cop is killed, but the cop isn't killed by the peeper, the cop is killed by by an assassin. And then the peeper, who was looking at the woman, or trying to, he gets shot by the cops, and you realize there's dirty cops involved. The assassin was hired to kill this cop. The cop was looking into this stolen gold, and a little bit of twists and turns in there. Kevin J. O'Connor, who was in Deep Rising, he was in The Mummy, he was in Lord of Illusions. He has a small supporting role in this as sort of a stoolie pigeon. A guy who tells other people what bad guys he told him, but he's actually trying to get close with this guy in prison, who knows where this gold's at. But anyway, long story short, again, I thought he did stuff better than the first one. Like, for example, he's looking at this footage and he's enhancing it, Bryan Brown's character, to see who the killer is, and then the killer arrives. And it's a much more fun fight than the fight scene Bryan Brown has in the first one, because, again, he's able to kit the guy, put on the suit, use the toy clown to fight the guy, and block the guy, and grab onto the guy, and it just, he's trying to do this while it's actually doing to the bad guy. It's hard to explain, but you understand when you see it. And I thought it was made for an interesting, unique, different kind of fight. I thought that was really cool. And then the second part of the fight, he doesn't have it anymore. He's just throwing shit at the guy like any of us would do. Because Bryan Brown's character is not a martial artist. He's not special ops. And then he's being drowned, but he's able to get a gun and shoot the aquarium that the guy's trying to drown him in, and trying to escape. And that's where Bryan Dennehy comes in the picture. And I think Bryan Dennehy and Bryan Brown work off each other very well. I mean, hell, in the first one, they only have like 30 seconds at the end where they're with each other. Here, they're much more together. That's, again, one of the reasons why I like this film more. These two guys share much more screen time with each other. They have much more back and forth. Bryan Dennehy actually saves Bryan Brown by pushing the bad guy's car into this trailer, in which the top half of the bad guy's car gets torn off. And he even says, like, you don't want to hang around here all night? Okay, fine, jump down, but just don't fuck up the roof of my car. And he brings Bryan Brown back to his place, and he's able to steer Bryan Brown, kind of like how in the first film, when Brian Denny went into Bryan Brown's apartment, the big creature thing spooked him. He's able to get Bryan Brown back because he's like, watch out, and the thing comes out and steers Bryan Brown. It's like, 5 years and I finally got you. And it also shows that the first film isn't forgotten because at the end of the first film, they got a shitload of money. And you see it because Bryan Brown had a great big huge apartment, and Brian Denny, he has a great place with a bar, and it just shows that they're not having amnesia with the first film. Because sometimes sequels do that, but this didn't do that, which I appreciate. Might seem like a small thing, but I do appreciate that. And then pretty much it's them working together. Brian Denny gets Bryan Brown to tap these phones. They find out what's going on, dealing with these gold that was taken from the Vatican. That deals with the Sistine Chapel and then they find out that it deals with something that's on one of these computer disks that the kid has, which leads to the bad guy trying to get the kid at this mall, and Bryan Brown saves him and his woman, and the Bryan Brown, the kid, and the woman get chased into this grocery store, and I love this sequence. Whereas Bryan Brown using his tricks and his knowledge as an effects guy. Okay, let me take the shoe polish and a lighter, and I'll put in this popcorn to make some noise. Let me put this hairspray, the lighter, against this wall of baked beans, so when the guy comes by, he's like, what the hell's that? It blows up around his face. Stuff like that. Other stuff like lighting the guy's feet on fire using this stuff on the floor, or when they get to the back, he's able to push the guy. It's like a wrapper that wraps the meat, wraps over the guy's face, suffocating him. And, Bryan Brown used that to get some information. I just thought it was a fun sequence. And then also Brian Denny doing his thing. I'm not sure if it's the same actress in the first film, but maybe it's the same character who would go on the computer to help him out. And you tell that Denny has a little bit of a hots for her. And then one night they're eating and she gets killed, which did surprise me. I did not see that coming, and I'm like, oh shit, I just did not see that coming. And then there's this lawyer girl that he knows. This lawyer woman he's known for a while. And it's one of those films that when you look back, you notice certain things. Because you notice like a look on Brian Denny when he looks at a cat and looks at a little thing on his neck. They don't focus on it, but you could tell, and at least to the end of the film, where they're at the bad guy's pad, and like the dirty cop and the stoolie pigeon, Kevin J. O'Connor's character, and they're actually trying to sell these. They find the doll, they're trying to sell it to the mafia, and Bryan Brown is doing all this stuff where he's like shooting one of those tennis ball things that shoot out, those machines. He's using like hot dogs and sausages to get rid of the dogs. He's taking out the bad guys using his effects, which I thought was really cool. Like for example, he's rid the place up, and there's like a pool table, and that guy's like, "What the hell's going on?" And he's able to shoot the pool ball up to knock the guy out. Or he has like a little toy submarine in the water, and the guy's like, "What the hell's that?" And it shoots a dart and knocks a guy out. And then by the end, Brian Denny realizes that the lawyer, I think her character's name is Liz or something, she's in on it. And I thought it was a very creative ending. And Brian Denny has some fun dialogue. Where like a guy says, "Well, the word dead man comes to." And Brian Denny says, "Well, that's two words." And Brian Denny's like using his dialogue to stir things up, and that's what I mean. Like Brian Denny actually is a part of this ending. And by the end, you realize that they've really rid this up. That Dennehy knew this beforehand because he looked at the cat, and the cat's tag had this word named Samson, which was a word that was on some documents. So he's like, wait a minute, that means it has something to do with her. Uh, Bryan Brown had read these squibs, so if he gets shot, Bryan Dennehy had given her a gun, but it was empty. It's hard to explain, but again, it made sense when you watch the film. So he actually has squibs on him, so Bryan Dennehy gets shot, but he's really not. And there's explosions by the helicopter that's going to take people out, and a guy who is one of the bad guys is on fire, but it's actually Bryan Brown doing a fire gag with effects to fool people and to fool everybody and get the gold and, you know, get the mafia out of there. I thought it was a really clever way they did that. And the dirty cop is in a helicopter, and he realizes that it's the toy, Bryan Brown controlling the toy, flying it. And even Bryan Brown goes, hey, look, no hands, and has the toy jump off of the chopper. And they both get more money because there's $10 million there, and they get the gold coins, and they actually go to Venice to return the coins. And, you know, it was just a very fun movie. It was an entertaining film. It went at a good pace. The score worked for the film. I thought the effects tricks were really... They're a lot of fun. That's the thing I keep saying. Fun. It was fun to watch these effects tricks. It was nice to see Bryan Brown, Bryan Dennehy have some equal stuff to do at the end. Bryan Dennehy to be more part of the story. I thought the fight scene that Bryan Brown has was improved. I guess I pretty much said all I should, say about this film. It's a film that's underrated. I think this is an underrated sequel. It gets a bad rap, and it doesn't deserve it. I always thought this was a good film. I always thought this was a very solid film. Just, these two work very well together. They have great chemistry with each other. They both do a really good job in the flick. Fun special effects, tricks, and techniques. Some nice twists and turns to the story. Never boring. It's well shot. Richard Franklin is a very capable director, so it's a well shot film. And the score fits the film well. I would say the score to the first one's a little bit better, but by Bill Conti, I believe. But this one from Lalo Schifrin, it's decent. I got into the story, and yeah, the Blu-ray looks beautiful. Looks great. I wish we would have gotten some interviews with these guys. I mean, Richard Franklin, the director's no longer with us, but it would have been nice to see or hear from these two guys. But anyway, underrated sequel. Don't really get the hate for it. I think it's a very solid film. And again, I love both of these. I wish we could have seen an FX3. I know there's like a TV series, but I don't think these two guys are in it. So, which defeats the purpose. But it would have been nice to see an FX3. See what more kind of special effects tricks and techniques there would have been, but FX and FX2, two very solid films. Really enjoy these movies. So thanks for watching, and take care. Later.